Brothers and sisters, once again, welcome to our evening Dhamma talk. So before we proceed, let me introduce Reverend to all of you. So this evening we have a Dhamma talk by Venerable Nana Daja Bhikkhu. Venerable is born in New Zealand in 1960. Bhante Nana Daja Bhikkhu grew up in Auckland. Auckland is in Switzerland, and spent his teenage years under the influence of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and motorbike gangs, and found pleasures in violence. At 19, living a hippie lifestyle, he left New Zealand, wandering to places like India, where he experimented with spirituality. While in India, he met the Dalai Lama and listened to the Dhamma from His Holiness, and eventually found his way to Thailand, where he studied meditation under Ajahn Tong Sirimangalo of the Chom Tong Insight Meditation Center in Chiang Mai. He soon found his calling to become a monk, and at age 50, Bhante Nana Daja was ordained as a Theravadan monk under Dr. Sayadaw Sunanda. Bhante Nana Daja aspires to open a meditation and Dhamma center in New Zealand one day. So Bhante, we hope your aspiration will come true, that you will have your own meditation and Dhamma center in New Zealand. So the topic for tonight by Bhante Venerable Nana Daja Bhikkhu is, anybody can go to heaven, why would you want to? So without much ado, I'll hand over the mic to Bhante.
Okay, yeah. It's nice to be back here. I think this was the first place I visited as a monk when I came to Malaysia. I came here for your wonderful Wesak musical celebration, and what a wonderful time that was. I really enjoyed myself, and it's a pleasure to be back with you again this evening. So I wanted to start with a little story. This is a true story, and it came to my mind this morning about how we can misunderstand people and a person's capabilities, and this will tie in a little bit later with the talk. Back, I don't know, it was either in the 1950s or the 1960s, there was a young man in London. Now I figure it must have been the summertime, because according to the article I read, he was wearing a pair of shorts, a t-shirt, and he had flip-flops on his feet. So we got to figure it's obviously the summertime, because it's a bit cold to do that in England most of the time of the year. Well, this young man, he had a bag with him. I can't remember now in the article if it was a briefcase or just some sort of shoulder bag. But he walked into a Rolls-Royce centre. And one of the sales staff at the Rolls-Royce Centre looked at this scruffy-looking individual and said, "What do you want?" And he's like, "How much for that Rolls-Royce there?" And the guy said, "A lot more than you can afford, get out." So this guy, he didn't argue, he just turned and he walked out of the Rolls-Royce dealership. Well, sometime later, the salesman was doing whatever it is salesmen do when they're not selling cars, polishing them or something like that. And he hears the tooting of a horn outside on the street. So he looks up, and there's a Rolls-Royce parked out the front of his Rolls-Royce dealership. And this scruffy young man is sitting in the car, and he very politely extends two fingers out and then drives off down the road. The young man in question was an up-and-coming actor who you might know today as, I believe it's Sir Michael Caine. So this salesman had looked at the way he was dressed and just assumed that he would never be able to afford to buy a Rolls-Royce. And apparently Mr. Caine had paid cash up the road. So there was a Rolls-Royce dealer up the road, a salesman somewhere who'd made a nice little piece of commission, and there was another very upset salesman. And so we have to be very careful that we don't misjudge people. And that brings me into tonight's Dhamma talk. Anybody can go to heaven, but why would you want to? Today, there are a lot of teachers, there are a lot of monks, actually, and they teach, be good, do dana, and you can have a heavenly rebirth. Now, we will find this in the suttas. The Buddha speaks of such a thing. And there are many people who quite like this idea. Be good, do dana, and go to heaven. Sounds like a wonderful plan. But it's the plan of a lazy person. And it's not what we should be aiming for. The Deva realms are places of pleasure. You know, you can, anything you desire, basically, you can have it. You know, I was saying, I rather like cheesecake. You know, it's been one of those things that I've liked all my life as a, well, actually I can eat a whole cheesecake in one sitting, you know. No problem whatsoever. And I often think, you know, what must it be like to be a diva? And every time you want cheesecake, you just think about it and you can have it, you know. Must be absolutely wonderful. So they have all of these sense pleasures that they can enjoy time and time again. But the problem is, you don't remain forever, as we all know, because we're Buddhists. These heavenly realms are impermanent. But what a lot of people believe is that you do good, you go to heaven, and then what they tell me is then you hang out, excuse me, you hang out up in heaven and you wait for the next Buddha to turn up. He will teach you the Dhamma and you will attain enlightenment. You know? But it doesn't quite work that way. You see, first and foremost, doing good doesn't guarantee that you'll go to heaven. You know, there is karma that can be waiting for us. Karma that may be due to ripen, that could in actual fact take us into a lower realm, into an animal realm, into a hell realm even. This karma will ripen when it's time for it to ripen. And that's one thing we know about karma. It ripens in its own time. And the other problem, of course, is we don't know when the next Buddha is going to come. And so you can go to heaven, and then when the karma that got you there has been exhausted, you will fall to a different realm. And of course we don't know what realm that's going to be. It could be a hell realm, could be an animal realm, it could be a hungry ghost realm. And so you see, the concept of just going to heaven isn't a very good idea. I'd like to read from the Iti Utaka. This was said by the Blessed One, said by the Arahant, so I have heard. When a Deva is about to pass away from the company of Devas, 5 omens appear. His garlands wither. His clothes get soiled. Sweat comes out of his armpits. A dullness descends on his body. He no longer delights in his own Deva seat. So we can see that obviously all the time he's been there, his garlands have always been very pretty. His clothing, self-laundering, I guess. You ladies would love that, eh? Self-laundering clothes, wonderful. But now we see that the garlands start to wither, the clothes start to get soiled, sweat comes out of his armpits, the brightness of his body starts to become dull, and he no longer takes pleasure in his own seat. So then the other devas, knowing from this deva's son is about to pass away, they encourage him with 3 sayings. Go from here, Honourable Sir, to a good destination. Having gone to a good destination, gain the gain that is good to gain. Having gained the gain that is good to gain, become well established. When this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, what Lord is the deva's reckoning of going to a good destination? What is their reckoning of the gain that is good to gain? What is their reckoning of becoming well established? The human state, monks, is the deva's reckoning of going to a good destination. Having become a human being, acquiring conviction in the Dhamma and the Vinaya taught by the Tathagata, this is the deva's reckoning of the gain that is good to gain. When that conviction is settled within one, rooted, established and strong, not to be destroyed by any Brahman or contemplative, a Deva, Mara or Brahma, or anyone else in the world, this is the deva's reckoning of becoming well established. When a deva passes away from the company of devas through his lifespan's ending, 3 sounds sound forth. The deva's encouragement, go here, Honourable Sir, to a good destination, to companionship with human beings. On becoming a human being, acquire a conviction unsurpassed in true Dhamma. Please note, true Dhamma. There's a lot of false Dhamma out there today, so we have to be in the true Dhamma. That conviction of yours in true Dhamma, well taught, should be settled, rooted and established, undestroyed as long as you live. Having abandoned bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, mental misconduct, and whatever else is flawed. Having done with the body what's skillful, and much that is skillful with speech. Having done what's skillful with a heart without limit, with no acquisitions. Then, having made much of that basis of merit through giving, establish other mortals in true Dhamma and the holy life. With this sympathy, the devas, when they know a deva is passing away, encourage him. Come back, deva, again and again. Now here we can see the devas are a little bit offbeat here because they keep saying he should come back again and again and again. In actual fact, you don't want to keep going back again and again and again. So we can see that there are a lot of things in the heavenly realms that we might enjoy, but they're not things that are going to last forever. Now, if you were to be reborn, like these devas say, go to a good destination, go to the human realm. But even rebirth in the human realm is not guaranteed to be a good rebirth. You could be reborn in a country where you don't have the teaching of the Buddha, where you're not allowed to practice the teaching of the Buddha. When I was doing my hippie stuff through places like India, and I got up north where the Dalai Lama was teaching, and he has public teachings up there. I think it's twice a year that he's actually in town for any length of time. He does his public teachings. And you can go to the temple. It's for free. You can walk into the temple, you can sit down, and you can listen to the Dalai Lama speak on the Dhamma. They have beggars come from all over India, and they line the street. There's a big hill that you go down to the Dalai Lama's temple. And all the beggars, they are lining the street, and they are sitting outside the front of the temple. And as you walk down, they place their hands out, looking for a few rupees, maybe a couple of momos if you've got some food on you. They don't even go inside the temple to listen to the Dhamma. They are so busy trying to feed themselves. These are people who've had a human rebirth. These are people who are within meters of the Dalai Lama. And yet they are so busy trying to get a little food. I've seen it in Thailand. There's thousands of temples in Thailand. They're all over the place. And as you approach a lot of the temples, you'll see these food stalls or the amulet stalls. And the people spend all their time outside the temple gates trying to make money. They don't have time to go inside the temple gates and to listen to the Dhamma. These are people born in what you would call a Buddhist country, and they don't have the time to listen to the Dhamma. So we can see that even a human rebirth is no guarantee that we're going to be able to hear the Dhamma, to listen to the Dhamma, to practice the Dhamma. In the Pansu Sutta and the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 56, then the Blessed One, picking up a little bit of dust with the tip of his fingernail, said to the monks, "What's more, monks, the little bit of dust on my fingernail or the great earth? The great earth is far greater, Lord. The little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail is next to nothing. It doesn't even count. It is of no comparison. It's not even a fraction, this little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail when compared to the great earth. In the same way, monks, few are the beings who on passing from the Deva realms are reborn amongst Devas. Far more are the beings who on passing away from the Deva realm are reborn in hell, the animal womb, in the domain of the hungry ghosts." So we can see this concept of go to heaven and wait for the Buddha isn't a very good idea. It's got a couple of flaws to it that we need to be very wary of. In one of the suttas, there's the simile of the blind turtle. A blind turtle that only comes up to the surface once every 100 years. And on the surface of the water is the yoke of the ox. And it's being pushed to the north and to the south and to the east and to the west on the waves, And the Buddha says that turtle has got a greater chance, even though it does only come up once every 100 years, it has a greater chance of getting its neck through the yoke bobbing on the surface than we have of getting a human rebirth. And so we can see just how rare and how precious our rebirth is in the human realms. So what we need to start looking at is what it is that we need to be trying to attain here. The goal of the Buddhist is Nibbana. But of course, you're sitting there and you're going, this monk is mad. He thinks I'm going to become an arahant in this lifetime. Yeah, that might be slightly difficult. I don't deny. Even for your average monk, it's probably slightly difficult to become an arahant, But we can aspire to stream entry. Each and every one of us here tonight can aspire to stream entry to becoming a Sotapanna. In the Dhammapada, verse 178 says, far better than sovereignty over the earth, or far better than going to the abodes of the devas, or far better than ruling supreme over the entire universe, is the attainment of Sotapatti fruition. So we see that rather than focusing on the heavenly realms, we need to be focusing on becoming a Sotapanna, on the practice that leads to stream entry. The heavenly realms still have suffering. We don't know where we're going to fall to. We can be on the circle of samsara for aeon after aeon after aeon after kalpa. Yeah. Stream entry has a guarantee of no more than 7 rebirths. It has a guarantee that you cannot be reborn into any of the lower realms. It has a guarantee that any human rebirth you have will be a good human rebirth. So to me that sounds a lot better than taking a gamble on hanging out in heaven and waiting for Buddha to turn up. So what do we need to become a Sotapanna? A Sotapanna has broken the 3 lower fetters. Okay, so that's only 3 of them. It's not the whole 10, only 3, not so hard. So what are they? Sakyaditi, views of self-identity, the I. You know, we need to get away from the concept of I. We start to see that there is no I. Vichikicha, doubt. Our minds are always pulling us in more than one direction. But when we get rid of doubt, then we're 2/3 of the way through. The third one is Silabhata Paramasa, the belief in rites and rituals, or grasping at habits and practices. Now, here I just want to say something. We just went for refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, and we took 5 precepts. These are good things to do. But they have to mean something to us. You know, I think some people think they're like some sort of magic beans. You know, you chuck them out the window and a big tree grows, and you know, something like that. It doesn't work like that. When I first became a Buddhist, in fact, the day I became a Buddhist, the Dalai Lama, he called, you know, anybody want to come forward and, you know, take refuge, and, you know, yeah, I'll be into that. You know, cool. So I raced up, you know, a number of other people raced up to take refuge. I mean, heck, it's the Dalai Lama, you know, you're going to refuse an opportunity like that. So we took refuge and we took the 5 precepts and we all raced up to the pub to celebrate. And as I progressed along the Buddhist path, I was kind of doing my best to keep the precepts. But I had adapted that, you know, the Western mindset of, you know, Buddhism's great because it's not a whole bunch of thou shalt not. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you break the precepts. You're not quite right. But what I used to do, you know, I had like a little Buddha image in my room. And I'd get up in the morning quite diligently and I'd take 5 precepts. Monday to Thursday. Friday I would take 4. Just in case I was going to go to the pub with my friends after work. You know, so I'd kind of worked out. Actually, a monk had told me, he said, it's better not to take it than it is to break it. So I would take 4 precepts Monday to Friday, on Friday and Saturday, sorry. And I've also seen this stunt pulled, where you're taking your precepts and people, generally speaking, on the 5th precept, they've done this. Which is the same as us Westerners crossing our fingers when we make a promise. So they drop their finger down, and it means, well, I'll say it, but I don't mean it, you know. Or as you're going, you know, you start, and you've got this taking place. I didn't say it. I was coughing at the time, you know. So the precepts, when we start treating the precepts like this, it's just a rite. It's just a ritual. You know, they've lost meaning. I've actually had people come to me to go on 5 precepts, and they've been drunk at the time. It's like, you know, go figure. Or you see them as soon as they walk out of the temple, you know, they start drinking whiskey the minute they get to their car, you know. The precepts for a lot of people have lost all meaning. And so we have to be very careful when we're taking our precepts that they mean something to us. You know, they're not just words. They're not magic words that are going to get you somewhere. You know, we have to the best of our ability, keep the precepts. You know, okay, if we break them, that's okay. We retake them, you know. We don't feel guilty. You know, guilt's not a Buddhist concept. In fact, I've often said to people, guilt is a stupid emotion because it keeps us weighed down. But if we break our precepts, we just retake them. You know, it's like, oh darn, broke it. And we try harder. We try harder the next time. We don't beat ourselves up over it. You know, we're human, we're frail, we make mistakes, you know. So we just retake the precept, we try a little bit harder, you know. But they've got to mean something to us. It's very important that they're not just words we're uttering, you know, that are absolutely meaningless. I was quite impressed when I came in here tonight and you started off and you did it in English, you know. A lot of people say, oh, you've got to do it in Pali. Yeah, I don't think that's correct, actually. One, Buddha didn't speak Pali. You know, Pali was the language that the suttas were written down in. And I think it's very important that we understand what it is that we're chanting, you know. And so, you know, the fact that you guys all did it in English, you know, because that's the common language here in Malaysia, I think is I think it's a wonderful thing to see, you know, and I'd like to see that more often in more places. It gives meaning to what it was that you were trying to say. Okay, so there are 4 factors that lead to stream entry. 1, associating with people of integrity. You know, when I first came to Buddhism, a lot of my friends were still the friends I'd been associating with before I'd become a Buddhist. Not a lot of integrity at times, you know, or some misguided integrity. You know, like, if I did something wrong, you know, they would tell me it was okay. You know, you know, if I did something right, it was okay. If I did something wrong, it was okay. They would never tell me when I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing. You know, these aren't people of integrity. You know, a person of integrity will tell you when they think that you're doing something that might not be as virtuous as it could be. You know, somebody they love you that much that they'll tell you off. You know, that's a person of integrity. So we need to be associating with people of integrity. Then we need to be listening to the true Dhamma. Now this one's difficult, ladies and gentlemen, listening to the true Dhamma, because there's so much Dhamma out there. It's not easy to see what is true and what is not true. I always say, go back to the suttas. No matter what you're told by any monk or by any knowledgeable layperson, go back to the suttas. And if what they're telling you does not compare with what the suttas say, then you have a choice to make. Who do you want to listen to? And sometimes the true Dhamma is hard to listen to. You know, again, with Westerners, they have a thing that I call cut and paste Buddhism. They like Buddhism, but they like to take parts of the Buddha's teachings that agree with them and chuck out the other stuff that they don't particularly like. You know, this is cut and paste Buddhism. But we have to listen to the Dhamma, and sometimes the Dhamma can seem a little bit hard, but as we practice it, we start to understand why it's there. And we have to give proper attention to the Dhamma. You know, I've seen people at Dhamma talks texting their friends. You know, they're obviously not listening that much to what's being told to them, you know. They're not giving proper attention to the Dhamma. I'm not talking about little kids down the back playing with their iPads. They're okay. They're fine. They're little kids, man. They're going to do that stuff, you know. But when we come to a Dhamma talk, we have to give proper attention. We don't need to be thinking about, you know, what I'm going to do when this monk shuts up, you know. Not wanting to rush outside, go clubbing, whatever it is that people do when they leave off. And then we need to start practicing according to the Dhamma. Like I said before, you know, when I first started practicing Buddhism, I would take 4 precepts. That's not actually practicing according to the Dhamma. That's practicing according to the Dhamma that I've chosen to listen to. And so we have to practice according to the Dhamma, you know. And this is where we start to take the precepts seriously. When we start to live like a Buddhist should live. You know, there were times people used to say to me, you know, because I was quite proud to be a Buddhist, you know. What are you? I'm a Buddhist. And then sometimes, occasionally, somebody would go, you know, I'd be partying madly somewhere, and somebody would go, I thought you said you're a Buddhist. Uh-oh. I didn't say I was a good Buddhist. I just said I was a Buddhist, you know. And I'd excuse myself that way. I wasn't a good Buddhist, so that was okay, you know. But I was deluding myself, you know. I was a Buddhist when it suited me. And when it didn't suit me, well, I just wasn't. So, we know in the Upada Sutta, you know, Ananda, he's talking, and he tells the Buddha that, you know, having good spiritual friends is half the holy life. And the Buddha says to him, don't say that, Ananda. Having good spiritual friends is the whole of the holy life. You know, it's too simple for us to slide backwards. You know, when we've got good mates and we've got bad mates. And it's very, very easy sometimes when we're hanging out with our bad mates. And we go there, we have these really good intentions, you know, yeah, I got these really bad friends and I'm going to bring them up to my level. Yeah, or not, you know. So easy for these people to bring us down to their level unless we're well and truly grounded in the Vinaya and in the Dhamma. It's very, very simple to be dragged down. I had a friend in New Zealand many years ago, a good Christian lady, and she did a lot of outreach work with homeless kids, some naughty people in my city. She really had a heart for these kids. And she said to me one day, she said, oh yeah, she said, when I'm talking to the teenagers out on the street, she said, you know, she said, I swear and I smoke, and I'm like, why? And she said, you've got to be able to relate to these children. And I said, no, I said, you're going down to their level. I said, they want to see more of you as a Christian. You know, I said, they don't want to see you acting like them. So they got plenty of that around them, you know. And eventually, you know, I didn't see her for some time, and I popped round to where they'd lived, and she'd divorced her husband. She was having an affair with somebody. You know, her whole Christianity had gone out the window. She'd been dragged down because she was associating with the wrong people. And so we have to be very, very careful. And so the Buddha tells us that, you know, we need to be associating with good people. Now, it's not always easy, you know. So you go out to work, and not everybody at your work's going to be a good person. You can't help but associating with those people. But as much as we can, we need to be associating with good people, and especially people who know the Dhamma, and people who are trying to live by the Dhamma. This is very, very important for us in our spiritual growth. So, yeah, in the Anguttara Nikaya, it actually says that we're not only associating with good people, but we're also learning from them, and we're emulating their qualities, you know. So listening to the true Dhamma, this is a sadhamma, it has 5 rewards. 1, a person hears what they haven't heard before. 2, he clarifies what he has heard before. So sometimes we've heard things but we're not quite sure about it. But we listen a bit more, and clarification comes through. 3, he gets rid of doubts. 4, he straightens his views. You know, we had wrong views, and now we start to straighten our views out. We start to have right views. And his mind becomes tranquil, number 5. And when your mind becomes tranquil, you start to give appropriate attention when you're listening to the Dhamma, yoniso manasikara. So, as you can see, there is some work to be done, you know, but it's doable. And I believe that everybody here can attain stream entry at the very least. You know, you can have the guarantee of no more than 7 rebirths in this lifetime. So the question is, anybody can go to heaven, but why would you want to? Thank you.